What's up, everybody? We're back on the E36 today. I spent the last hour or so cleaning up the last of the undercoating from the wheel well and grinding down some welds. I found I have a couple that I need to still tack up because there's some holes. But we're going to get to finishing this corner for the most part because there's not much left. We've got a stiffening box in the bottom. We got to fix a hole at the top and the front of the rocker. And then I got a piece that goes in the very front of the engine bay wheel well area. So with that, I'm going to show you where we're kind of going here. Okay, down here in the wheel well, I got all the undercoating out of there, cleaned up my weld that was along there. They're not perfect, but we're going to be undercoating it again, so I'm not too worried about them being super smooth, but at least knocked down that you don't see them. I have a piece that's going to end up in here, which is this one here that I've cut, bent, and everything to fit this area and fill in that big gap that I made when we repaired this rust. We also have the front of the rocker piece that we're going to fit in. We might need a little bit more metal to get it there. The box is going to get dealt with and a little bit more rust to clean up in there. Cover all that in primer. And then, with that, we have a filler panel that both sides are going to get right here. Make a nice flat area so it's smoothed off. The rad support comes up. It hides it all nicely. Your factory AC dryer, the lines usually come across here into the top, come over to your AC that's in roughly this area. My dryer is still going to be here, but I'm going to mount it up underneath, run the lines underneath the frame rail to it. Same with, more than likely, take those lines, run them along the top edge of the frame rail there, and somehow bring them up to the factory spot up there, keep them nice and tidy. I want to try to keep everything kind of hidden. Same with the brake mount here. I think I'm going to remove that and find a new bulkhead to put it through. Get rid of all these leftover screw hangers, as I will not be using ABS, so I don't need that, and I don't really care about the brake pad warning. It doesn't really affect it if you pay attention to your car. So those wires going to be gone, which is going to leave this very empty. And then the side marker and something else that runs along there, we're going to find a new way to run all those wires. But with this metal, we are essentially done this side as far as I want to go. A couple more brackets to take off, a couple more things to clean up, but this side will be done. Then we can move towards the back again. So as always with our repair panels, make sure they fully fit up. Do as much trimming as you can off the car. And now that I have all my tools here, I can actually work on this a little bit easier. You want to make sure your seams are as level as possible to the factory metal. Again, my cuts weren't perfect when I initially did it, so it will be what it is, kind of. So, but it fills in that hole, gets rid of all the crap that's there. So what we'll do is run a cut line across the top to try to trim it up a little bit. And one more cut line on the inside to clean up the last of that. And then we'll get to tacking this thing into place. So with that, we have a repair done right here. Filled in that hole, welded all along the seam, did the 4 spot welds that it had on the top. Now we'll just clean that up and it'll look like it never happened. Okay, so now, hopefully I don't block too much of this with my knee, but now we're going to work on getting this lower rocker situated. We're going to try to reuse as much of this as we can, as it did come from here. I had to split this. We only needed a little bit for the bottom of the fender, but I went and made it the entire length and then should have cut it short before. So we're going to have a little piece of metal just hanging out there for a bit, or I guess for the rest of the time. But with that, we will get this panel fitted into place. So we'll be using this line to fit it up to. Everything else should work out as we are in line here. This angle kind of matches the factory angle in there. So with that, let's get to fitting. And I also noticed my mic really helps to drown out that welder when it's screaming in the background. So I'm glad I grabbed one of those. Draw out our rough cut line, get us in the ballpark. So this panel will be a little different for fitting as I have absolutely nowhere to grab it. So we're going to start with a few tacks. I mean, this has essentially a weld through primer on it already. Everything in this area has been covered in a primer, so I'm not too worried about that. So we're going to get this fit up, use the Milwaukee again, and cut this line and lose hopefully this side and not that side into the car. And then we'll keep fitting it up. We've got a little roll here, which hopefully I can hammer out. Same with down here. We'll end up cutting along the edge, but we need to get this in place a lot better than it is. And the only way is to kind of hammer it in, unless you want to make a whole panel, which, I mean, if I had more metal sitting around, I would definitely make probably a nicer looking panel with a better bent edge on it. But this will be covered by the piece that has to go back in here, which will be, once this here, put this back on, clean all this, put it, and then these edges are going to be welded from the inside, as it's just easier. Let the weld fall through this side, clean up whatever is seen, and let it eat essentially, because the inside needs to look better than the most hidden metal on the car. Okay, so far a small amount of tacking. We'll keep bringing this around. We only have a small little lip, so I'll cut right below, hopefully right here, and be able to take all this off in one go. Okay, so with that, the front of the rocker is now closed up. Just got to grind all the welds down. But other than that, it's looking good, and we'll go from there with the next spot. Okay, so I ground down the weld a little bit to hide it all. Get some weld through where it's going to be welded. Some normal primer on all the other bare metal. Got the backside of this all cleaned up again. Normal primer on the bare metals. Weld through all through the area that's going to be welded. Nothing fancy here. Just gotta put it back in place. So this is our easiest part of doing our rocker back together. It's just putting the panel that was cut out back where it started, like so. We're going to tack up the known areas and then get at making sure the rest fits the way it should. Helps keep your gas back on. And as you can see by the fact that this landed right where it should, that means this panel was made very well by the company. So from here out, it's just fill our spot welds, weld around the top, and call it done essentially. And then this whole area is basically done, other than the box under there that needs to be dealt with, but we will get to that as well. Okay, so we got our lower plate welded back in, all ground down, looking good. That concludes this corner. I need to get a sheet to do the stiffening box, but we'll bend up and make a new piece for there. And again, finish up the little bit of rust. But from there, we're going to deal with getting this into place, because I think it's going to truly add a little different flair to the engine bay that no other E36 has. I've literally never seen this done. If there is, point me towards it, but I believe this will really add a little bit of difference, even though you'll see a little bit with the hood open, especially if you look in from this corner and stuff. You'll see those two spots all filled in, not looking down in behind the bumper. But I'm gonna set you guys up. We're gonna cut this out. But with that, this is a chunk of 18 gauge, bent form on those two edges, hand formed on the lower edge and hammered out. So we're gonna cut this edge off. I repeated the edge that this has because I just wanted to bring it around instead of having it end straight down. I really like this little step lip that runs along. The two sides I have measured out, and they're going to be in line with each other. So if you look at it, once they're installed, it's going to be a straight line across here instead of, one might be like this or like that. They're going to be in line. This is going to be level to what's already here. But I'll get you set up, and it's just going to be like everything else. We're going to draw our line, cut it back, clean up both edges, and burn them in. Okay, so our first order of business, I cut out the corner so I could stick this in, get it to line up a little bit better, as there's a couple planes here that we need to get. I also used mainly my tape measure, go across. I have a mark on either rail where this is in line with this, in line with the other side. So once we get going, this edge will mostly be in line there. Actually, I think it's the lower edge that's more in line. But we're going to be cutting a little bit off here. So I'm going to start with basically cutting along this edge and taking out this corner so we can get it in place and find our cut line. So with our most basic amount of fitting, it fits up pretty good, follows the line underneath, which we'll have to cut back, and we will be adding stitch welds along here. But we will draw out our line here and start cutting it back some more. I'm going to have to change this angle just a little bit so they fit together nicer, and maybe just take a little bit off this corner so it doesn't overlap where my headlight mount goes. So like I said here, we're going to trim this edge back just a little bit so that I don't get into this headlight adjuster spot, and then we'll mark along the chassis side and cut this, and then cut the excess lip off, and then we'll start tacking this into place. But overall, fits in with very little work, as I did a lot of pre-work making sure this panel was the way I wanted it. And so there's our cut line. We're going to go along there, take that edge off, and then work our way in with this panel. Okay, so since I don't really have an easy way to hold all this, It does fit nice here, so what we'll do is we're going to start tacking it along this edge. Hopefully it doesn't move too far, and then this lower edge just needs to be hammered in just a little bit to match up to this angle, and we'll copy our stitch work from there down through here so it's all stitched in, get it all welded in, smoothed out, and then this is essentially done. But before we get too far, you can see I got these holes. I'm going to tack these up real quick and then get onto that piece. Which, I have a trusty tacking bar. I use this for a lot of hole filling, so. Okay, so what we're going to do now is knock down the tops of our tacks on both sides and then hammer and dolly this edge perfectly together. I got a little bit of movement because kind of freehanding it, and you saw I seem to be quite thin right here, so it's not happy. Okay, so now with this all welded in, some stitch welds along the side, this whole edge is going to get smoothed into this panel nicely. We got our weld up and around, fitted up here. Nice solid piece. I'm going to grind these out top and bottom, hammer smooth any wrinkles that might have happened, and I think that's everything we can get done for this episode, since, like I said, I got no metal for that. So I'm gonna get this ground out, those couple welds, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we got this ground down, looking good. Got all my tack welds fixed in there. Kind of ran out of time for the day, so we're gonna leave this off here, finish up any grinding. Finish up the grinding here. This is all done. I'm going to have another video soon for that, but glad we got more of this done. It's starting to come along. And now that we're this far, we can start working our way back again once that stiffening block's done. Hopefully to pick up a sheet of steel soon so that I can fix that and show how I make it by hand, since I don't have all my big tools from work anymore. But it's fairly easy to do this stuff by hand. I only have hand tools, so I'll show the whole process of bending and all that fun stuff. But with that, I hope you like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon for notifications. And there's always content to be made here, so we'll be back. This has been the Hand Built. Good night.